Ah, Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Casually Profound series and the Size Eyes podcast and the Some Days Today mini-series within Casually Profound. So,
It's a lot of series and names and podcasts to keep in mind.
I
A
know.
lot to keep track of there.
Yeah. Well, today we are in State 7 of the 50 current United States of America. And today we're in Louisiana, specifically Cafe Du Monde in New Orleans, in the City Park location of the state. This is our seventh state of Some Days Today series, doing doing all 50 states.
Yes.
Podcast conversation in all 50 states. So I'm glad to have you along with us for this journey. By the way, if you haven't followed yet this journey so far, this is Adam Kamak. Known each other since college. Podcaster, content creator, entrepreneur, former teacher,
Extraordinaire.
savant.
Sure, let's go with that.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks, Sai. I'm glad to do this. Excited to do this. We should probably clarify before we dive in that since this is state number 7, our previous 6 states in which we recorded, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Missouri, and Kansas. I believe I got those in chronological order for us as well. Also, you had a sigh at the very a sigh from Sai at the very beginning, indicating maybe some displeasure with this. We are extremely excited about being here. Excited to have this conversation. So, thank you.
Yeah, it was a sigh of great joy. It was a sigh of relief.
Good. Okay, a sigh of relief that the long wait since we last recorded is over.
Exactly.
I also should clarify, since you said the current 50 U.S. states, while we do enjoy speculating on what a state 51 could look like or other potential changes to the lineup of states, I at least do not anticipate any changes anytime soon.
Yes. Additionally, I'm not 100%, so if you're any sniffling or anything like that, that's fine.
Yeah, to provide some context for everyone, we're recording this in August 2024. Sai's been out of town nonstop for 3.5 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So he's been feeling a little under the weather the last few days. I've been traveling for most of the last month. I was in the northeastern U.S. visiting family, then went to Argentina for a couple weeks. And I too was feeling sick for a few days in between Argentina and coming to Louisiana. So I think I'm further along my recovery process, but we've both been a little under the weather. But we're gonna power through, and we're gonna make this happen.
We'll see where it goes. Well, I feel like you set that up very intentionally with bringing up our travels. So let's dive into some of that stuff. So like you said, we've been doing some traveling this summer, last month plus. So I'd love to hear, well, first off, where you've gone. But then also along these travels and even previous travels that when you've talked about some of the things that you've learned and reflected on and insights that you've gained as a result of doing travel with groups or solo. So I'd love to hear, obviously, where you've gone, what you've done in a semi-abridged version. And then also what insights, 1 or 2 key insights that have stuck with you along those travels in the past or this recent bout of travel.
Yeah, so I guess I should mention that I live in Houston, to provide context for what would count as traveling and what would not count as traveling. So in the last month or so, I visited some family in the northeastern U.S. I went to New York, Boston, and up to Maine. Then I was in Argentina for about 2 weeks. So I went to Buenos Aires, went to El Calafate and the Perito Moreno Glacier. Then went to Ushuaia, which claims to be the southernmost city in the world, is one of 3 claimants to that title. We could get into the minutiae of that if that's of interest at some point here. Then up to the northwestern part of the country with Salta, down to Mendoza, and then back to Buenos Aires. Was home in Houston for a few days, and now we're here, and we're intending from New Orleans to go to Gulfport, Biloxi, Mississippi, record a podcast episode there, then go to Mobile, Alabama, record there, and then go to Pensacola, Florida, record there before you go back to Kansas City. I go back to Houston. So certainly a lot of travel, and I'm sure I've talked about this before on episodes, but just in general, I enjoy traveling quite a bit. So I've been to all 50 US states, I've been to 26 countries on 6 continents, so have not been to Antarctica, but at least by the standard definition of 7 continents that's taught in North American schools, I've been to 6 of the 7.
Yeah.
Although in European schools, I actually teach the Americas as one, and not, as opposed to separating North America and South America. So we could that could be another rabbit hole we could go down. Is New Zealand its own continent of Zealandia? I have been to New Zealand, and to the extent that that's relevant for this, but let's go with saying 6 out of 7. And I've also been to American Samoa, U.S. territory. So quite a bit of traveling. Love doing it. I've done a lot of it solo. I've done some with my parents. I've done some with friends. I've done some in larger groups. Lots of variety there as well. Some going to places where I know people, and a lot of it going to places where I don't know anyone. So some key takeaways from travel. There are several, and we'll have these come out over the course of this conversation, I'm sure, in greater detail, and discuss some others as well. I think one is the ability to kind of take a step back from our day-to-day lives and reflect and reevaluate and think about what we've done, what we're doing, what we want to do, who we want to become, how we want to change. Travel, it's almost like you get to temporarily be someone different. You get to go somewhere new. You get to do different things, see different things, interact with people that you wouldn't otherwise interact with. And it's a wonderful opportunity to reflect and reevaluate. So, you and I talk fairly regularly, and I've been out of town several times over the past year, and you were commenting that it seems like every time I go out of town, I have either a new business idea or a new plan for something that I want to do, or I've backtracked on 3 other things that I said I was going to do previously. But I think that just comes with the territory. Whenever you take a break and a step back from anything, it gives you a chance to reflect and reevaluate. And you mentioned earlier that I'm a former teacher. Even just traveling in the sense of traveling away from that line of work gave me a chance to take a step back and reflect on what that experience is like, and what I appreciate and liked out of that experience and want to try to maintain, and what I didn't like and want to distance myself from. So that's a big takeaway from travel, just the opportunity to reflect and reevaluate your own life and what you want to do, and who you want to become. There's also the excitement from seeing new things, meeting new people, having those experiences that you can't get in your hometown. And that's important. It puts you in awkward positions where you're the person that doesn't know the language, where you're the person that doesn't know anyone, that doesn't have the connections, that doesn't have the contacts, that doesn't know where to go to where a grocery store is, where a convenience store is, where a restaurant is. It takes someone out of their comfort zone, and that's good. Life should be comfortable at times, but in order to grow and to have new and different experiences, it's important to be uncomfortable at times. It forces you to figure things out. How you're going to get somewhere, how you're going to do something, how you're going to have the experience that you want out of travel. And then it's helpful learning and seeing how other people live, learning about different cultural traditions, seeing different styles of life that we're not exposed to, in our hometowns, and feels pretty common that there will be something in my travels that will come to mind, over the course of conversations or interactions with people back home. It also makes someone more interesting. There are way more things to talk about, and so much of networking, job seeking, developing friendships, building relationships with other people, getting to know other people, is based around having stuff to talk about. And you're way more interesting and have way more things to talk about if you can talk about these adventures in other places and far-flung places, and places that a lot of people have heard of, but and might want to go to but haven't had a chance to go to or haven't decided to go to yet. Provides way more conversation material and can really provide fertile ground for growing new relationships as well. So I'm sure we'll think of others as we go along, but that's been a lengthy digression and dialogue, lengthy monologue for me. So let's hear more about your travels, Sai, and give us some of your takeaways.
Yeah. For me, on this extended, because I haven't traveled at all after I moved back from Charlotte to Kansas City last year. I did one weekend trip to Denver last Labor Day, 2023, and then this year I went to, I guess, also to Denver for a different reason for a few days as well. But yeah, since then, like Denver, Kansas City, Greenville for a week, driving there, and then stopping at a Buc-ee's, pilgrimage to Buc-ee's. Took someone there.
We're very pro Buc-ee's on this podcast.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, they should be a sponsor. So we'll reach out to Buc-ee's if anyone listening.
We will. I will gladly take Buc-ee's money if they want to give me a Buc-ee's shirt to wear on the broadcast on the podcast. I will gladly wear it.
Yeah. Greenville, and then went to Charlotte for a weekend. Caught up with some friends there. Was in Chicago for almost 2 weeks. Family, friends up in Chicago, and then now New Orleans for this past weekend. And then again, what Adam mentioned earlier about the day-by-day road trip for the next few days here in the south along the Gulf Shores. So for me, I wrote down some intentions prior to starting this entire road trip, or this entire trip. One of them was health and wellness. So despite my not being 100% today,
yes,
overall, I feel like I've done pretty well in prioritizing my health from a eating standpoint, not counting the fact that we just stuffed our faces with 3 beignets each at Café du Monde.
Yes.
For the second day in a row.
Yes. You could have omitted that part.
Went in Orleans. And then been working out consistently. I have the Planet Fitness Black membership, which is it's $30 a month, but for access to any Planet Fitness location versus $10 a month for just one specific location.
Oh.
So I've went in Greenville. I went there every weekday that I was there for the week. And in Chicago, I went 2-3 times, as well as went running along the Lakefront Trail along Lake Michigan. So
beautiful. So
from that perspective, and each time in Greenville and Chicago, I was buying groceries and eating at home, maybe half the meals. So it's easy to fall hey, let's go eat out and explore the foods of a city that you haven't been to previously, or as much compared to the city you've lived in or you live in. So I'm glad and that was me previously.
Yeah.
And so now I'm glad that I've experienced, all right, can I go weeks at a time with some level of health and wellness discipline in each of these cities that I'm traveling to. So that was one intention that's coming true for the most part. Another one is my energy levels. So it can be easy to have these waves of energy when you're traveling, and maybe they naturally come. For me, I've been pretty good with my energy levels, where I almost kind of see this as a mini book tour without the book and the tour, but
yes,
but the traveling piece.
And at least the last 24 hours without the energy as well.
Right, yeah. Well, the energy's been going towards sleeping and getting rest.
Is that how that works?
So, uh, but yeah, so like, because I imagine in the future when my book is published, or even for work in general, as I travel, do workshops, speak,
Right.
um, there's gonna be some travel involved.
But there,
Um,
there are different types of travel, of course. I mean, traveling for work is different than traveling for family is different than traveling for leisure, right? And the sorts of things that I would do if I were traveling for work and regularly need to be at my peak performance level, but that would look a lot different than I have 2 weeks in Argentina, have at it, see as much as you can.
yeah, exactly. So, so I was kind of mixing in that, yeah, what you said of like leisure, family, and for work.
Right.
Um, on this entire trip, it's been all three. A little bit of leisure, spent some time at the American Writers Museum in Chicago. Same day I saw family. On the same day I did work. So it's it's cool to see the combination of all three of those aspects of travel.
I feel like, and this hasn't been so much the case, or this was not so much the case on my Argentina travels, but probably was the case on my northeastern U.S. travels. But I feel like I'm in some ways healthier when I travel. Maybe my sleep schedule, depending on the circumstances, may or may not be better. But I feel like there are fewer distractions. So there are
Mm.
more days of going to sleep at a normal hour. There's also more of um, an idea that I need to be up earlier because I want to maximize my time in a place. I don't feel that necessity when I'm at home. Typically more active, like way more walking. I mean, in Houston, it's not even conceivable to walk anywhere, by and large. But going to places that are way more walkable. And there's also just way more walking that comes with travel because you're walking to museums, walking tours, hikes, right? Way more active, way more um, activities that involve some type of movement, even if it's not going to a gym. There just tend to be more sorts of outdoorsy activities, or if nothing else, walking from place to place and being out and about. On the food side, I definitely try, different foods whenever I travel. Want to experience the cuisine. I feel like in Argentina, I way overdid it. I was traveling with a friend, and he and I were stopping a lot to get food, um, way more than I would have if I were on my own, and way more than I typically would um, if I were traveling elsewhere or at home. Like on my northeastern U.S. trip, and on a lot of my previous travels, uh, I'm not as uh, I'm not sticking to traditional meal schedules as much because I want to maximize as much as possible, right? And if something closes at 5 or it's going to get dark at 6 or whatever the case may be, it's way more important to me that I go to that museum, that I go on that hike, that I see that park while I have the opportunity. Then I go get more food. Restaurants are open; they're there. There are opportunities to eat, and because it's in a lot of cases a constant sense of doing something all the time, then there aren't those gaps of just sitting there thinking, I could be working, but I really don't feel like working. I'm going to go get a bite to eat. No, it's like I have a list of 12 things that I want to cram into 3 days. Let's get through it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that at least the way I travel, there are a lot of aspects that lend itself to being healthier. Now there are also those days of overnight flights or overnight train rides or bus rides or weird connections or delayed flights that can throw off sleep patterns
Or beignets.
or beignets.
Yes.
Um, but I think in a lot of cases it's almost healthier just because of the activity involved and the desire to cram a whole lot of stuff in, but cramming it into daylight hours and business hours as opposed to doing all sorts of other things outside of business hours. Now, other people have other approaches to travel, right? So there are some people for whom the nightlife is a very important part of traveling, and going to clubs is an important part of traveling. I hate all that stuff, so obviously that's not a part of my travel. So travel, in some ways, helps me. I feel like generally I'm on a much better sleep schedule when I'm not at home than when I'm at home.
Yeah. Let me take a quick pause. I just need to blow my nose. I'll cut this out of the podcast.
You don't have to. It's raw. It's authentic. It's the real Psy.
Okay.
I mean, people do get sick, and people do have to blow their nose when they're sick.
They do.
This is not unique to you, so
It is
you
not.
don't have to cut it out.
well,
It's
I
part of the
don't.
experience.
I
And we said that we're sick.
I don't know if listeners want to listen to someone blowing their nose on full volume in their headphones.
They might. You don't know.
You don't know.
There's some odd people out
Could
there.
be some ASMR. Anyways, so a question I have for you is, so you have Place and Profiles as one of your podcasts.
Yes, placesandprofiles.com.
Yes. New website, by the way. Looks good.
Yes.
As of a few months ago, I think.
I've redone the website. Yes, that was correct.
So my question is, has there been a different perspective to the actual show itself, the content, maybe the people that you may want to bring on as a result of all the travel the places and the profiles that you're actually visiting and seeing and meeting, and that you want to bring in some aspect to the podcast and your content in general?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm going to have anything particularly insightful or groundbreaking to say in response to that. But for places to which I have been, it provides more potential material to discuss on an episode that is about that place. If I have someone on to talk about the history of a country or a city or a state that I've recently been to or that I've spent extensive time in, or if I have someone on to talk about a historical figure whose museum or life was particularly relevant on my travels, then I know a lot more about the topic, which influences the questions that I ask and the conversation that we have. Also can provide me with guest ideas, tour guides, museum docents, curators that I meet on my travels. So, a lot of cases I'll make note of their name, their email address, phone number, whatever. Or it could just give me an idea for topics that I wouldn't have otherwise thought about because I was at a museum covering a certain topic, or because a certain topic came up on a walking tour, saw a building or historical marker about something on my travels. So in those ways, yes. I don't know that there's a broad overarching travel takeaway that influences my episodes if I'm recording shortly after having traveled. But in terms of specific information and knowledge about particular places and people, and in terms of particular ideas for topics and guests, absolutely.
Yeah. Where do you want to take it from here? There's lots of directions that we can
Well, yeah.
travel.
So I talked a little bit about my background with travel, I guess, and I could go more into that for sure. But tell us a little bit about your background in travel. Overview of kind of where you've been, some of the places you've traveled to, and then anything that stands out. I know we're doing this conversation as we are traveling, as we have been traveling a lot recently, but let's get a broader scope of the travels of Sai Vasan and the general approach to travel, not just from this trip, but in general for Sai Vasan.
Yeah. I feel like I didn't travel that much. We didn't travel that much as a family growing up. We did do some trips here and there, like DC in 05, like Chicago also in 05, Chicago in 08, Niagara Falls I think in 05 or 04. I think LA, like India, so stopped in LA for a little bit. But growing up, it was once a year type of thing. So, I mean, I got to experience a little bit, but I was, and I don't know if that was the norm back then for families of doing one trip a year.
I think that is.
Yeah.
We would generally go to Boston to see family, go to Iowa to see family, uh, maybe go to some state parks in Texas or Arkansas, like some more local stuff. Um, Beyond that, we didn't go on a lot of family trips to different places. There were a few, like in 2002, we did a Colorado, South Dakota trip, uh, Nebraska and Wyoming as well, minimally, like in between those two states. We went to Disney World like a couple months after my bar mitzvah to celebrate that. Um, but we weren't going to a whole bunch. We went to Las Vegas and Southern Utah when I was in high school. So there were some, right? But
Yeah.
there were, we went to New York to visit family a few times, Chicago to visit family a couple times. But it's not like we were blanketing the U.S. map. You know, that wasn't, that's maybe a goal of mine, not a goal of my parents. So I think it's pretty standard that families will travel a couple times each year to visit relatives, and then maybe once a year, every other year, go on a domestic trip or short international trip as a family that doesn't involve seeing relatives. I think that's pretty common.
Yeah, because it was like every time we went to India, which was like every 3-4 years, it was like seeing relatives, and that was and staying with them, and that was it. Like I've never really traveled too much outside of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana.
That seems to be pretty typical of the Indian American experience. The vast number of Indian Americans I know, they might know one or two cities or states very well where they have family, and they haven't explored outside the country much beyond that.
Yeah, exactly. And fair enough, because like my parents hadn't seen their parents in 3 years at a time,
Right?
And so they want to spend extended periods of time with them and
Right.
their other relatives. So I don't blame them. It just wasn't. It was in line with the other experiences that you've mentioned that you've heard of others. Outside of that, I traveled once a year for the DECA Nationals. So I got to travel in a friend group, and on my own. So like not my family, but on my own with friends and school friends, for a specific reason with a competition. But it was honestly just an excuse to go to some cool cities, maybe go to a theme park, and hang out with friends. So that was like Orlando, Salt Lake City, Anaheim, and Atlanta. So those were fun, great memories with a lot of everyone there. But we didn't take trips as a family, mostly, at all during that time together. And at that point, my brother was already in college, and then I was in high school, so like a little bit of scheduling, not issues, but more things to take into account.
Yeah.
And then I really got the travel bug in sophomore year of college, or between sophomore and junior year when I interned at United. So that summer probably I did travel the most amount of places, and then after that, a little bit less, but still in the tens of thousands of miles for the next couple of years since I was still on a +1. But then after that, it's like maybe 1, maybe 2 trips a year. So, and mostly just staying domestic. So I haven't been international in quite some time, actually. I think the last international trip I did was India in 2019, November 2019, so a couple months before COVID. So, but now I'm like starting to. So like I was journaling about traveling a few months ago, and I was like, all right, I think the first phase of my travel life was this United phase, where all right, let's just get it out of my system, almost like a travel abroad experience, basically, that I was paid for. I don't like everyone will attest probably at United that I didn't do a great job as an intern, which is why I didn't get an offer back. But yeah, I recognize that now.
The truth finally came out today.
Well, yeah. And then I got that over with. Haven't traveled for a few years consistently. This month kind of alluding back to, hey, I think it's a precursor for traveling in the future with combination of work, family, and leisure, whether it's book, workshop, speaking, etc. So I think this next phase of travel for me, going into later this year, next year, is going to be primarily around work and maybe even connecting again with friends. Whether it's this podcast series, whether it's high school friends, the reason I initially came here for New Orleans, wedding, the reason I went to Chicago earlier on this trip. So I think they're all starting to connect again. So it, um, that's where I feel like I'm at, on an overall broader perspective of travel. Yeah.
Yeah, the only time I had traveled internationally prior to adulthood was in 2010. My parents and I went to Israel to visit family and go to a bar mitzvah. And for my parents, that was the first time that either of them had left the U.S. in multiple decades. And even in the years since, as my international travel has become rather prolific, other than going to Mexico City one time at my urging and my hand-holding and dragging them along, and eventually getting them kicking and screaming to want to go, that's the only time that they've left the country since that Israel trip. But travel has always been something that I've wanted to do. When I was a kid, and I'm sure you probably have similar experiences, but for some of this, I had a little pocket atlas, and that thing would get absolutely beaten up, ripped up, torn to shreds because I would use it so much that the binding was coming apart. That the pages had little cuts and tears, and I had just been through that thing so much. U.S. Atlas, same thing. I would pore over those maps all the time, binding pages all falling apart. I had a Texas Almanac. I know we've talked more about international travel than local travel, right? But like multiple editions of Texas Almanacs that were just falling apart because I flipped through so many pages looking at county profiles and things like that. Whenever I would fly Continental, and then after they merged with United, which Continental was the dominant airline in Houston pre-merger and now United post-merger, so that's who I flew the most. Up until now, because United recently announced they're getting rid of paper copies of their Hemispheres magazine, but at least from being a little kid up until recently, upon boarding the plane, I would pretty quickly go and look at the route map towards the back of the magazine and look at all the places that they fly and that I could go to someday. And then they would have airport maps for some of their larger hubs and partner airline hubs, right? And look at those different airport maps and think about possibly going there someday. So, this has always been appealing to me. Always spent a lot of time reading about different places, watching videos about other places, looking at other places through the lens of sports, through the lens of politics, through the lens of news, whatever the case may be. So it's always something I wanted to do. It wasn't until I left college that I really have had the opportunity to do this on a large scale. So, like I said earlier, that I've been to all 50 states. At the time I graduated from college, I'd maybe been to about 30 states, right? So, adding 20 or so states in the time since then. At the time I graduated from college, I'd been to 2 countries, the United States and Israel. I've been to 26 countries now, so I've added 24 countries in the last 7 years, 7.5 years. And that's with COVID travel restrictions in the middle. So this is something I've wanted to do, love doing, continue doing. Wasn't really a part of my childhood in any great way. Maybe more so than some people it was. I'm sure there are plenty of people who don't have the experience of road trips through the Midwest or going to the Northeast to visit family, but not prolific travelers growing up. But definitely something that I will continue to do whenever I have kids. This is absolutely going to be a part of their experience. They're going to be familiar with the great cities of the world, with the great museums of the world, the great historical figures where they went and where they lived and all those sorts of things. It's great fun. I love doing it. So I travel a lot. And, travel is a consideration in any sort of lifestyle arrangement that I want, in terms of work, schedule flexibility, the ability to travel, not constantly. I like the idea of going home somewhere and being able to rest at home and having a community that I'm a part of and a community that I call home. But at least the ability several times over the course of the year to go and travel and see new places, different places, return to places that I like, or where I know people. That's very important to me. Something that I definitely want to have a part of my life.
Yeah, you brought up road trips. Road trips were not really a thing for me growing up, where like we were. So like in 2003, we were going from Kansas City to St. Louis. We had just moved to Kansas City that year, and we got into like a big accident, on I-70 in between the two cities, and we were like, oh, like 3 to 4 hour drive was like a big deal at the time for us. It's like we've
Right.
never driven that long, continuously before, or like a day or a weekend trip before. And so I don't know if that, obviously that like physically and mentally and emotionally maybe scarred and trauma from that as a family. But we haven't done like many road trips together as a family, which is kind of interesting. But now I love road trips, whether it's a
Yeah.
quick day trip, um, like actually being able to explore a lot of cities and areas that are within 2, 3, 4 hours from a city that you like. It doesn't make sense to fly there,
Right.
right? Flying from Charlotte to Asheville, it doesn't make sense when you can drive there in 2 hours.
Although American does offer it.
It does, but
Primarily for connections.
right. But so it's like, and then I've been able to, like, for example, I did a road trip individually once from Charlotte to New York, and then the next year I did same road trip, but then with a friend who drove up from Atlanta up to New York, and it's like a vastly different experience when you're able to share it with someone.
Right.
Because like I love traveling alone, and now I've been able to travel with people, or at least when I go somewhere, it's like meet up with people.
It's nice to have a balance, to have a mixture of the two.
I think so. It's like, and maybe on the same trip, it's like, let me explore these things on my own, and then
Right.
let me explore these things with other people. That has seemed to be a good mix. And like those road trips, and even like trips like New Orleans for us right now, but then also the friend group that I was with, we were childhood friends. And so this is the first trip that we've taken together, just like organized on our own, right? It's not been like for a wedding or some other reason where we just met because we knew the other people there. It was like, hey, like let's 5 of us, let's actually schedule this. So we're joking that it got out of the group chat actually, and not just wasn't a hey, yeah, let's do this someday. Someday was this weekend.
Was a few days ago.
Yes.
Was yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So those, like, whether it's the road trip or you're in a confined space for an extended period of time, or you have retreats, whether you have, a weekend experience together with some people, it exponentially, I think, strengthens the relationships with them, because you're with them for hours and days at a time, rather than like a lunch at a time.
I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, I think it generally strengthens a relationship, just as I think any sort of in-person interaction with someone generally strengthens a relationship, even if it's just meeting them for coffee for an hour to catch up, or meeting for dinner. I think that generally strengthens the relationship. And there are people where maybe the entirety of our texting conversations for months and months will be trying to schedule dinner, right? And like we're not texting about anything else. It's just, I might text them asking when they can do dinner, and then they'll get back to me and say it's busy. Let's try again in a month, right? And like it'll go on like that for months.
Or for other people, it's months at a time, just sending each other Ertl scores.
Yeah, we do that too sometimes. But then whenever you finally see them, you renew the relationship, grow the relationship, and then you have things coming out of that to talk about. When I say it's a double-edged sword, I think that there is a point at which you spend so much time with someone that maybe a little break is helpful, I guess, right? Like if you travel with someone nonstop for 3-4 weeks, right? Maybe that's a wonderful experience where you're enjoying each other's company the whole time. In all likelihood, at a certain point, you're probably going to run out of things to say, and then they're just going to not so much need to be a cooling off period, but yeah, there'll be a little bit of a break, and then you restore the relationship to, and continue the relationship from there. Not restore, but continue the relationship, right? But no, travel is a good way to strengthen and grow relationships in most cases, and it is important to have that balance between downtime, time to yourself to do what you want, time with other people.
Yeah. That goes to actually one of the other intentions that I had coming into this trip, which was how am I going to, which goes with the energy as well, which is how do I balance out time with people and then time for myself,
Right.
where I have more control of that when I'm at home, when I can be like, hey, let's schedule coffee. Let's, I can do that on the road too, but it's just, you just inherently know fewer people in most cases. Um, and so how do I balance this? Like, all right, the reading time or journaling time that I would seek out to do, or go to a library,
Right.
or go to coffee shops that I know already in Kansas City. How do I balance that out with, with coffees in a new place, meeting people, or work time? So like this balance of, all right, like I need to actually take time for myself so I don't get burnt out one way or the other.
Right. And it's okay to have some of those things fall through the cracks. Like when you're somewhere else, it doesn't need to look exactly like it does when you're home. That's part of the experience of being somewhere else. So those times where you would spend journaling or reading or working out or meeting people for coffee, or these things that are a part of something resembling a routine at home, it's okay if it doesn't look the same, doesn't happen with the same frequency for the same amount of time, or happens with greater frequency or with more time when you're out of town. Like it doesn't need to look the same. That's part of the experience of going elsewhere, is doing things a little bit differently, more or less, or not at all, whatever that change in frequency looks like.
Yeah.
And that's, going back to what I was saying at the very beginning about reflecting and reevaluating, that also provides that opportunity, right? If you do something more often when you're out of town and seems like it works well, or doesn't work well, or you do it less often and maybe you don't miss it, or you do miss it, or whatever the case may be, then you can apply some of those things that you learn through that experience when you go back home.
Yeah. Sorry, another quick break.
While Sai is blowing his nose, I just want to remind the audience that
this will be cut out.
They should.
So whatever you're saying right now is not going to be included in the final cut.
Darn.
Okay. Yeah, so we're just talking about like energy, spending time individually. So sometimes so even when I'm home, I prefer going to a lot of times networking events and social events individually, because I feel there's no compulsion to stick with the person that I know. So it's like, oh, like I can meet anyone, I can be anyone.
And it forces you to go meet new people.
Exactly, right?
As opposed to hanging out in the corner with the person you already know, ignoring all the people that you don't know who are the main reason that you're there.
Yeah, like so.
If you're just going to talk to the person you already know, you don't have to go to a networking event for that.
Right. And so I almost prefer not. I feel like for me, a lot of times going with one person I know is almost the worst case scenario, because at least with three you can be like, all right, let's split up and like, or whatnot. But like two, it's like, all right, we're the only ones we know. Let's like stick together. It's not always like that, but have you seen that at all with when you're traveling? If you're traveling alone, it's like, all right, like we gotta do things, like I gotta do things, like more extroverted nature than you normally would, or
so yeah, sometimes. I mean, it depends on what kind of mood I'm in and where I'm at in the trip, but in a lot of cases, yes. Like there is a little more kind of putting yourself out there and making more of a concerted effort to try to meet other people. I feel like with a lot of travel-based activities, it's a little easier to meet other people because you're going to go places where there are other people who are traveling. So you already have something to talk about. That's not going to feel awkward. That's not going to feel forced. That presumably both you and the other person are passionate and knowledgeable about, right? So if you go on a walking tour, in most cases, the other people on the walking tour are not locals. Although now that I've done a lot of these walking tours all over the world, before the end of the year, I do want to do a walking tour in Houston to see what that looks like out of curiosity. Um, Perhaps maybe even start guiding some walking tours in Houston at some point. I think that could be a cool experience.
Yeah. I assume not during July or August.
Probably not, unless it were indoors. You know, like there's an air-conditioned underground tunnel system in downtown Houston. So if it were in that system, then
Yeah.
perhaps. But generally, people going on walking tours aren't locals. So you're already meeting people that are traveling, that are interested in learning more about that place, that are interested in learning about the history, the culture, whatever the case may be, connected to that place that you're traveling, and that are also interested in leaving their comfort zone and going and exploring somewhere new. So there's already a built-in topic. There are already things to talk about, where you've gone on your travels, where they've gone on their travels, where they're from, where you're from, what you're doing in that city or country, what they're doing in that city and country. So in some ways, it's easier to find that. Now, the unfortunate part in a lot of cases is that those relationships don't really last, right? I mean, it's someone that you talk to whenever you're at that activity, you know, depending on the circumstance. Maybe you feel like there's enough to say, and you then go grab lunch at the restaurant across the street that the guide recommended, or go to a coffee shop that looked cool while you're walking around the downtown area, or whatever the case is. But then in a lot of cases, those relationships end when the trip ends. Not necessarily, but they come to an end. But there is this idea of having to force yourself to get out and talk to people. That's part of the experience, locals, tourists, whatever the case may be. And without that, you're devoid of in-person human interaction if you're traveling by yourself. So it's a necessity, as opposed to at home when you know a lot of people, and going out and meeting new people is nice, but it's not always needed. Or maybe it is needed in some senses, but we don't always feel the urgency and the necessity behind it the way that we might have for elsewhere where we don't know anyone.
Yeah. I guess what sort of... Yeah, go ahead.
No, what were we going to say?
No, I was...
Yeah, so what, a lot of this conversation has been more focused on themes to travel and lessons to travel and things that we've gotten out of these experiences. But let's maybe turn it back with the next question to specific destinations itself. What are some places to which you have been, of which you are particularly fond? And what are some places that you would like to visit, that you would like to have the opportunity to explore and see, that you have not visited to this point in your life?
Yeah. While I'm thinking of that, I hope you're also thinking of an answer for yourself.
Of course.
I think my favorite city to visit has been Rome so far. From a historical and cultural significance standpoint, you're walking around, you see all these things that you've read about and seen about in this place over there, whether in textbooks or documentaries, and to actually see them with your own eyes. It's like, oh wow, this is where this happened, this is where this happened. You see the magnitude, not just physically, but the cultural magnitude. So Rome, from that standpoint, was probably my favorite city. I'm also including Vatican within Rome in here. And then from a natural standpoint, I would say Hawaii is definitely up there in terms of the natural beauty. It speaks for itself with obviously the oceans, like Kauai, like the canyons, the hikes that you do there, the waterfalls. So anyone that's been to Hawaii knows, like, hey, like, yeah, like it's one of the top places in the world to go to for beaches and relaxing and exploration.
Yeah.
So those are probably the two uh, places that I definitely want to go back to. Um, so yeah, I think I divided up from at least from those two standpoints of like city and walking and cultural significance, but then also if I want to get away, all right, what's a great place for that? Whether it's Hawaii, I've done Calgary and Banff was a great place for that, to do some hiking, get some altitude, and like literally a new perspective on things. So yeah, so those are two or three of the places that I've really loved. Going forward, I haven't been to Southeast Asia. I mean, that's like another classic like location for people to go to and travel, and economically it makes sense. But definitely want to experience more of that side. My family having lived both in India and Singapore previously, I was kind of in the middle to see maybe go back to Singapore because I was only there as a child that I didn't remember.
So you have been to Southeast Asia.
I have been to Southeast Asia. I don't remember
You don't
my
remember
experiences.
being there,
Yes. So I definitely want to go back there. Experience the food, the culture, the Vietnamese coffee. Heard a lot of good things about Vietnamese coffee that I've tried here in the U.S., but I'm sure it's a different. Like, I feel like you've been to Vietnam?
I have not.
Okay.
I've been to Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore.
Okay. So want to experience that. Then also a place where there's mountains, lakes, and a cabin, but like relatively close to society, like civilization, but not like in a city or
Acadia National Park in Maine.
maybe.
I don't know. That's what comes to mind when you say
Yeah.
that.
So like I'm open to that and like maybe even settling down.
Actually, some of the places I went in Argentina
Okay.
would fit that bill.
Yeah, I think those are my two elements that I get the most creativity out of and most peace and serenity out of. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. So places I'm particularly fond of, to which I've been. So on Rome, I'm gonna take, since you mentioned that as your favorite city, I'm gonna table that for now. I have been to Rome. I was there for 3 days with a large group of people, as part of a tour where I wasn't setting the itinerary, so I didn't feel like I got enough of an experience to be able to evaluate. So I'm going to put that actually in the category of future destinations. Favorite city that I've been to, that I feel like I've really gotten to experience is Paris. Some other cities that I rather liked, Buenos Aires, London, which surprised me because I think we all envision London as being like this gloomy, dreary, smog-covered, gray skies, polluted city.
Right.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fascinating. I had a great time there. Sydney, tremendous natural beauty. Melbourne is far more interesting culturally, and also has natural beauty, so I'll include Melbourne. I thought Toronto was a nice place, as was Montreal. Yeah, in the U.S., it's hard for me to evaluate anything in Texas through an unbiased lens, since that's home. So I could include all sorts of Texas cities on this list, but for places where maybe I'm a little less biased, I think Nashville's a great city. Salt Lake City and Denver have tremendous natural beauty. Charleston, South Carolina, for like a smaller location. I think that's a wonderful place. As far as natural sites that I really like, so on the South Island of New Zealand, I did a heli hike at Franz Josef Glacier, where like you fly in a helicopter, land on the glacier, get out, walk around. So that was fantastic. Both Alaska and Hawaii are magnificent. I share your affinity for Hawaii. For the island of Kauai, which you mentioned, I mean, the road to Hana on Maui is fabulous. The Big Island, Oahu, so much natural beauty on Hawaii. Alaska is tremendous. Definitely recommend that for anyone who has the opportunity. Um, Grand Tetons in Wyoming, Yellowstone. Um, let's see, some other places outside of the U.S. I just did some hikes in El Chalten, Argentina, in the Andes that were magnificent. Machu Picchu in Peru with mixture of natural and man-made beauty. Costa Rica, beautiful, beautiful country. Um, let's see, Thailand has spectacular beaches, of course. Milford Sound in the southernmost part of New Zealand with the fjords. And then I also went to some fjords in Norway, um, originating in Bergen, the second largest city in the country, and proceeding from there. So like Flum, Norway, little village, little town right next to fjords, so tremendous places with fantastic natural beauty. The French Riviera is magnificent. Also like Ez Village and Saint-Paul-de-Vence, all sorts of just beautiful little towns, villages, cities along the Mediterranean in France.
Ho ho.
So lots of tremendous places that I've been. As far as places I haven't been, I guess I'll list off some countries and some parks. So although I said I was in Rome briefly, but I would love to explore Italy more. I've never been to Greece, Switzerland, Austria, so those are all high on my list. India is very high on my list. Almost went there last March. Instead, I went to the South Pacific, which, by the way, Fiji and Samoa would also make the natural beauty list of places that I've been to. I'm fond of the natural beauty. But I'd love to go to India, Japan, and South Korea. I would love to go there. Colombia and Chile are countries I have my eye on. I've also never done anything in the Caribbean, so I'd be interested in exploring that. And Spain, I was in Madrid briefly for a couple of days, but I would love to explore Spain and Portugal. I've heard tremendous things about Portugal. And I'd like to do a little more exploring in Africa, so maybe South Africa, Namibia, Botswana. I guess Seychelles would be sort of like a beach, or Mauritius would be kind of beach destinations. Definitely a lot of the world left to explore. So excited about that. And then I've never been to, amazingly, despite all my travels, I've never been to the Grand Canyon. I've never been to Yosemite, so those are high on the list as well to check.
Neither have
I.
I haven't been to either of those either.
Oh, on the subject of natural beauty, I mean, the Pacific Northwest, like the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State and Olympic National Park is spectacular, so beautiful. I've never been to Vancouver, Victoria, British Columbia. The border was closed when I was in Washington State, so definitely would be interested in going to those places as well.
Yeah. And let's not forget the other 140 countries that we didn't mention.
Yes.
Right now.
Each one with its gems and places that are well worth seeing. Yes. Iceland would be another place I haven't been to that I think would be fascinating.
Same, yeah. But, well, so that this podcast doesn't turn into a list of country listing.
We love that.
Oh, we would love that.
I've held my tongue on airport codes. So many cities that we've mentioned without mentioning the airport codes.
I commend you for that. That takes a great constraint.
Yes. Brazil, by the way, would also be a fascinating country to visit that I haven't been to.
Yeah. I definitely want to go. And then also events, like you mentioned Paris, but would have been cool to go during the Olympics, or Brazil. My brother went to the World Cup when Brazil was hosting it 10 years ago. Or these places and locales that are there for a specific event. Yeah. I think that would be pretty cool. There's Cricket World Cup, Soccer World Cup, Olympics, non-sporting events. I think that's definitely an aspect of travel as well.
Yeah, for sure.
That I want to incorporate. Well, it's been an hour. It's flown by. And it's cool to wrap things up with bringing things full circle where, we started this series of Some Days Today related to our love of travel.
Yes. One state to the west of where we sit right now.
Right, exactly.
So maybe before we wrap up, let me ask this briefly, and you can provide a brief response, and I'll provide a brief response. We'll see if we're capable of doing that. But what has been your favorite part about being in New Orleans in the state of Louisiana over the last few days? And what was your favorite part of, or what did you enjoy most about this conversation about travel?
Favorite part of New Orleans? minus stuffing my face with beignets, has been, I say that like the friends that I was able to hang out with, had it. I'll see them every now and then. One lives in Kansas, so I'll see him pretty regularly. The others, are near Olympic National Park and are near Shenandoah National Park.
That's another wonderful place, Shenandoah
Right.
National Park.
And so I don't get to see them as often. But like, us actually spending time together and like just creating new memories and reliving old ones. Just like walking the city, going to like just ducking in and out of shops, just like buying small trinkets, small things, gifts for my partner, stuff for myself, whatever it is. So like just going in and out of like whether it's Decatur Street, Bourbon Street, Frenchman Street, like even like chilling out here in City Park yesterday and now. That's been pretty cool experience for me. And what's the second one about this conversation?
Yes.
Yes, making me realize like, hey, there's a lot of places to go, a lot of cities and countries and parks and mountains to hit up soon. So I need to do a country count of how many countries I'm at. Since you said you're at 26,
I am.
I'm not there. I feel like I'm in like around 10.
Although part of the counting exercise involves defining what counts as going to a country and what is a country.
Yes. Well, I would say actually getting outside the airport and spending considerable amount of time, whether that's a few hours or a day plus, I would say.
Right. I would say legally allowed to be there, feet on the ground outside of the airport.
Yeah.
But then what counts
as outside of a car.
Right. But well, that wouldn't be feet out of the. Like if you are outside of the car, then you would have your feet on the ground.
Right, like if you're driving through like Alabama, for example.
Right, you have to actually park somewhere and get out and put your feet on the ground.
Yeah, feet on the ground. Yeah.
But that, what counts as going to a country could also be like, does going to Bermuda or the Cayman Islands, does that count as going to the UK? Like I would say yes. But that's another angle to this.
Maybe. So, did you go to Chile when you were on the Malvinas? Well, I guess you didn't go.
Well, I did not go to the Malvinas
right,
either.
yeah.
I went to Ushuaia, where they have many maps of the Malvinas, and many flags and signs and souvenirs and monuments and memorials that declare that the Malvinas are always Argentine. I did not go to the Malvinas.
Yeah.
I also did not go to Chile. I saw Chile, but I have not yet been to Chile, so that doesn't count. When I was in Israel as a kid, I saw Syria and Lebanon, and I think Jordan as well. But seeing a country off in the distance and going to a country are different things.
Correct. I'd say so. What about you?
Yeah. So my favorite part of being in New Orleans, obviously getting to see you and hang out with you, which is something that seems to happen 2-3 times a year maybe. So that's always a good time.
Yeah.
Wish we got to do it more often. So that's always fun.
Yeah.
But this is, despite living so close to New Orleans, it's one state over, 5.5 hour drive from Houston. And for all my travels, this is only my second time in New Orleans. And the last time I was here was 2011, and it was a school trip when I was in high school. So I had no say over the itinerary. So this is my first time having a say over the itinerary. So having the ability to explore and wander around the French Quarter and Jackson Square and downtown and see different places kind of more on my terms and get to really take a deep dive into the history and learn more about the history of New Orleans, culture of New Orleans. I've thoroughly enjoyed that. And then as far as this conversation, getting to talk about places that I want to go to, that I've been to, that you've been to, that you want to go to, that are fascinating and great fun, and having our takeaways from our travels.
Yeah.
And this says something about my political views, I'm sure, but also getting to steal that question from Michael Malice, who at the end of all of his podcast episodes always asks his guest, what has been your favorite part of this episode? But I think it's a nice way to like have a couple takeaways and kind of sum things back up.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is what I wanted to ask.
Hopefully y'all at home or wherever you are, if you're traveling, maybe you're listening to this while you're traveling.
Yes.
Wherever you are, you're having some takeaways on that trip that you're on, a trip that you've been to, setting intention for a trip that you're going to go on, connecting with the culture, the people, the place, of the locales as you're traveling and planning on traveling. So appreciate y'all listening. This is the 7th episode of the Some Days Today mini-series within the Casually Profound series within the Size Eyes podcast. Listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Within Easy Mode Coaching LLC.
Yes. Next time, well, I guess not in this trip in the Gulf Shores, but next time I'll be wearing an Easy Mode Coaching branded apparel.
Next time we record, that's not on this trip.
Correct.
Yes. I also want to encourage everyone to check out my podcast, Places and Profiles Podcast. You go to placesandprofiles.com. It's also available on all major podcatchers. By the time this podcast is published, because I assume it'll probably be a couple months before you have this up there, so the Adam Kamak Show will have launched with all sorts of inspiring and interesting interviews and stories to help encourage you to do what you really want from a career standpoint. Do something that's fulfilling and fun. So go check out the Adam Kamak Show. Go to adamkamak.com. That's Adam, C-A-M-A-C. My last name is a palindrome. AdamCAMAC.com for more information on that and for other things that I am working on. And thank you, Sai. Great time. Pleasure. Fun as always. I will look forward to recording tomorrow in Gulfport, which in terms of podcast publication times is probably like 2 months later from when you're hearing this episode.
Hey. I'll be better about podcast publishing.
I need to be way better too. I'm at least as bad as you. So we both need to do better. And I hope that everyone out there listening will make an effort to recognize that someday is today and to go and do the things that they hope to do someday. Go and do those now or as soon as you can.
Perfect way to end. Peace.